Publishing has changed a lot, and it has changed a lot in particular in the last year, and I believe it's going to continue to change even more so in the next 5 years. So the following are my top predictions for what is going to happen in publishing over the next 5 years. Let's get into it. My first prediction is that AI is going to become commonplace. This is already happening. AI exploded onto the scene in late 2022, although it had been around for a lot longer, and it has become the main topic of conversation in 2023. But as 2023 has progressed, we've already seen AI start to take deeper roots. We see it being integrated into Google Docs, into Microsoft Office, into virtually every writing app and every art app on the planet. You see it in Canva, you see it in Photoshop. It's everywhere, and it's just becoming a natural part of every tool that we use, online and offline these days. And so my prediction is that this AI, as we are already seeing, is just going to become commonplace. The controversy around AI is just going to die down. It's not going to be a huge deal anymore for most people. And certainly for the new and upcoming generation, the high schoolers and the college kids, those people are going to just be fine with it because it's simply a major part of their lives, just as social media is to us today, even though it wasn't 20 years ago. And going along with that, I think that because of AI, the cost of doing certain things and creating certain things is going to come way down. Things like animation, things like game design are all going to be significantly cheaper than they were before. In the next 5 years, it will still probably be necessary to have a small team to create those things, but it can be done with a team of maybe a dozen people, whereas before it would have been multiple dozens of people and entire studios, incredibly costly to create, say, an animated TV show. We're already seeing this with certain prominent YouTubers actually who have the resources to be able to use AI in new and creative ways. They are creating entire TV shows with AI at a fraction of the budget that it used to be. And that trend is only going to continue downward and get cheaper and cheaper for the average consumer to use. And so we're seeing this a lot. And I have a feeling that instead of just being an author, we as creatives will have the opportunity, whether we want to take advantage of it or not, to become more multimedia focused. And I've already seen this with some authors who are using AI to create things like coloring books or comic books or graphic novels, which were much harder to produce and more expensive to produce before. Now we're able to create those things on a smaller budget and have a slightly more multimedia empire with the content and the intellectual property that we produce. And this is only going to get more and more common, I believe, in the next 5 years. We'll see it with, of course, graphic novels, coloring books, children's books, all of these things, and with regular books as well, of course. But I think we'll begin to see it with animation and video games in the near future, and potentially even live action or something that looks like live action television or movies in the future as well. We'll see it with music. Imagine having a theme song for every single one of your characters. That's the kind of thing I envision happening over the next couple of years. So those are the two predictions I have related to AI. But the third prediction I have is a little different, and it has to do with Amazon. And we are already seeing this one as well. Amazon is cutting margins, and because of that, things are going to be getting more competitive over time on Amazon. Now, when self-publishing first became a thing, a lot of authors flocked to the platform and were making an insane amount of money with only a couple of books. All it took was a series of maybe 4 or 5 books, and you could be making a living off of that alone. Soon afterward, it became more of a standard to say, well, you really need more like 20 books. And now there are people that have even more than that are struggling. And this is nothing new. On pretty much every emerging industry, it's very easy for the people that in on the ground floor. But as time goes on, the space gets a little more crowded, and certain things like advertising become a necessity in order to get your eyes in front of people, in order to get your books in front of more eyeballs. And so this is normal in pretty much every industry. It is important to have advertising for anyone to see your product. And the reason people are kind of moaning and groaning about it now is because it didn't used to be that way in self-publishing. And that is because self-publishing was, until a little bit more recently, a very new, very shiny endeavor. And Amazon made it easy for those authors to sell their books because they just wanted to get more people on their platform. They wanted to encourage competition on their platform. But now that that competition is here, they have to create this ads platform to not only capitalize it on them themselves, but also because people want that. People want to be able to pay to get in front of somebody. And so that's just the natural way that it tends to go in pretty much every industry. And my prediction is that this is going to only continue. And Amazon's going to get more and more competitive. Another thing that we've seen recently is the rates for Kindle Unlimited going down. And so, which means that if you are in Kindle Unlimited, which is this exclusive platform on Amazon KDP, you're going to be making less money. And that means that you're going to maybe want to share your book, with other retailers and go wide, which is a way of getting around that. And so until recently, Kindle Unlimited was a very attractive option because people could make a lot of money from just people in Kindle Unlimited. But now that is becoming less and less likely. And that is, again, due to primarily competition and just the way the market shifts as more competition piles up. This sounds like a really bad thing, but I actually think this is going to be pushing authors in a good direction, which brings me to my last prediction for the next 5 years, which is that selling direct is going to be an incredibly important form of business. There's a type of marketing out there called direct response marketing. And if you haven't heard of it, look it up. And I would in particular look up the work of Russell Brunson and Dan Kennedy. There are several others in this space, but those are the two I would look at. Dan Kennedy in particular pioneered this idea of direct response marketing. He's a little bit older now. He's still around and doing stuff, but he was there back in the 90s, primarily in the early 2000s, doing a lot of this kind of work. But the principles that he came up with were pioneering. And Russell Brunson's a little bit newer, and he kind of took those same principles and applied them into online business. And I believe that this is the business model we're going to want going forward. Direct response marketing is way ahead of the publishing industry. And what I mean by this, if you look at traditional publishing and even at self-publishing to a certain degree, and you look at the business models that people are doing and the way people talk about business in publishing, it's like we're a couple of decades old if you go at it from the direct response perspective. Direct response people would look at it be like you're stuck in the 80s. And a lot of that is to do with some of the different business models that rely heavily on gatekeepers. I'm not just talking about traditional publishers like Random House. I'm talking about Amazon. Amazon is a form of gatekeeper. We are selling our books on another person's platform that we do not own. And that is just a bad business principle if you look at it from an outsider perspective. And so that is why I believe selling direct, especially as competition heats up on Amazon, selling direct is going to be hugely important, because what it allows us to do is create our own brand and our own identity and our own customer journey. What I mean by customer journey is, rather than just say, here's my book on Amazon, please buy it, and then maybe buy a few more. The problem is people show up on Amazon and there are a million things competing for their attention. There are people advertising their books on your page. And that's actually not something that you want. You want to create an isolated environment. This is one of those principles of direct response marketing. You think of people going to Disney World, there's nothing you can see for miles around that is not owned by Disney, and they will sell you things that are at a huge, insane price, and people buy them because they are at Disney, right? That's kind of the attitude you want to come at it with. You want to create your own experience in direct sales. And so rather than leading them to a page where they can go off and buy a million other people's books, you lead them to a page where they can buy one thing. And then maybe after they buy that one thing, you will lead them to the next thing that has been carefully crafted and carefully chosen to be the next thing that they might want to buy if they bought that first thing. And then you bring them into the next thing and they can get on your email list that way, and you can nurture them and help them to find more things that you might want them to buy and that they might want to buy. That is going to be the business model going forward. That is the business model behind direct response. The other thing about direct response marketing is that it relies heavily on getting instantaneous results that are measurable, which is something you also cannot do on Amazon. It's one of those things that, you can run a Facebook ad to Amazon and you can see how many people clicked on that ad, but you actually don't know who of those people actually bought your book. If you're selling direct, it is quite different. You can send people from Facebook to your page. And by the way, you can send a higher quality of people to that page as well. If you're using a Google or a Facebook pixel, you can send people that are more likely to buy. Whereas if you're sending to Amazon, you're only sending the ad to people who are likely to click, not necessarily buy. And so with direct response, you can immediately see who clicked, you can see who bought, you can get the email address of the people who bought, and you just get so much more data and so much more information that can go and inform your business. And if you can get it to the point where you're spending $20 for a $30 sale, that's like having an ATM where you can just put in money and it gives you more money, and you can just keep that loop going. So it's a really important business model. And I know I've gone a little bit into more depth than I anticipated here about this, but it's something I think is going to be incredibly important in the future. It's something I'm currently working on in my own business to create something that is unique and not really something that people are aware of because it just hasn't been done in publishing so far. There hasn't been the need. But as things get more competitive at Amazon, I think we're going to see more authors going to this kind of a model where it's all about getting that traffic in a direct response kind of way and building the brand and forming direct relationships with your readers rather than just kind of shouting into the void, hey, everybody go to Amazon, buy my book. Those are my 4 predictions for the future of publishing and writing books in the next 5 years. I hope that was useful for you, and I will see you in the next video.